We're going to get started for the Redevelopment Commission meeting of December 15th, 2025. We'll start the meeting with a roll call, please.
Lori McRobbie, present. C. Scamillary, present.
Randy Cassidy, present.
John West, present.
Deborah Meyerson, present. And staff available, please.
Anna Killian Hansen, present.
Christina Finley, and
Amy Caswell, present.
Jane Cooper-Smith, Economic and Sustainable Development.
Dana Kerr, Legal Department.
We're introducing staff.
Matt Swinningham, Department.
Cody Cheeseman, Law Department.
Thank you. Okay, so the first item on our agenda is the minutes from December 1st, 2025. Any comments or questions from commissioners on the minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is examination of claims registers for December 5th, 2025. Any questions or comments from commissioners on this item?
Yes, I have a question. On page 44, number 223, can you remind me what we own at 105 West 4th Street?
is that 104th Jane, 105 4th Street?
Is that the 4th Street garage? I'm not sure. Hang on, we've got.
Oh, that could be. I just couldn't remember the address.
I'm thinking it's the 4th Street garage, commercial spaces. Yes, it is.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners on the claims register from December 5th?
One question on the first one, and 1101 in general, on the neighborhood grants, just on Bluestone and Andrew Mars, that was a combined grant to the Bentley homeowners for the $9,067. So it was broken up into actual physical and then consulting.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of them appears to be consulting, and one of them is actually
Actually physical
the
installation.
actual work. Yeah, the Mars is consulting, and the
So I thought, so we're about even in regards to what it was, consulting the actual physical improvement.
yeah,
Thank
that and that's through our neighborhood
Right.
improvement grants, which are not to funding.
Right. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the difference between the two. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion for the claims register of December 5th.
Move approval for claims register for December 5th, 2025. Second.
We've got a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, examination of payroll registers for November 26, 2025. Any questions or comments from commissioners on this item?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, first and 2 seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the report of officers and committees. We have a director's report tonight.
You don't. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Legal report?
Nothing specific, but I'm here for any questions.
Okay, thank you. A treasurer's report. I don't know if we even have the controller here. So, okay, well, anybody get in touch with the controller if you have questions. A business development update.
Not this evening, but also happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much. So next item on our agenda is under new business. Okay, old business until the end. Okay, there we go. So first item on our agenda under new business is resolution 25-141, approval of agreement with Adaptive Commons for comprehensive and coordinated design of Hopewell West Block 4. Who'd like to speak to that?
We actually have them online, ready to give a brief presentation.
Okay. Welcome.
Are you all able to hear us?
Yes.
Turn the captions on, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Sorry, we're having computer difficulties.
Yeah, just under more, there should be a
If you
captions
click
option.
down here.
Can we just turn up the volume?
Well, both is fine. Thank you.
at you. Okay, you guys are welcome to share your screen if you would like. There was a proposal that was included in your packet.
Great, are you able to see that?
Yes.
All right, well, hello everyone. We are Adaptive Commons. My name is Riley Gibson,
And I'm Derwin Sisman.
and we're really excited to present our proposal, our scope of work to begin the pre-development work for the redevelopment of Block 4 at Hopewell. So to start off, my name is Riley Gibson. I come from a background in architectural design and community engagement. I have spent my career focused on involving community members and neighborhoods in the shaping of their built environment. And I am super excited to work as the portfolio manager of Adaptive Commons, where I oversee our pipeline of investment projects and workforce affordable housing projects across the country.
And I'm Derwin Sisman, and just by way of background, I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in Queens, New York, in a really rough neighborhood. But I went to high school in a much more affluent neighborhood, a public high school on a college campus, so I know firsthand what it's like to experience living in two worlds, if you will. And I like to share that context because it essentially has illustrated the work I've done ever since, and has dictated the work I've done ever since. And so after graduate school, I landed in Memphis, Tennessee, and out of Community Development Corporation, founded a single site charter school, which went on to do really well out the gate. And I realized pretty quickly I was doing the same thing to our kids that was done to me, and that they were getting a great education, but they still had to go home and no one was focused on the built environment. And so that's when I rolled up my sleeves and got into real estate development, all with a socially oriented lens. And from that point, ended up acquiring 43 acres of land, 24 of which was a private apartment complex, 394 units, collectively $1,100, and worked to reshape that space to what is now a middle school, performing arts center, single family homes in partnership with Habitat for Humanity. And then we eyed the shopping plaza directly across the street from that, which is now a medical clinic, a dental clinic, elementary school, a high school. So the full K-12 continuing with the wraparound infrastructure. And I've continued to do that work for almost 20 years now. Was also involved, as you can see here, with the 1.5 million square foot redevelopment of the old Sears building in Memphis, which is now a vertical urban village, which includes not only a school, but housing, YMCA, arts facility, art space. And so just wanting to demonstrate the work that's happened over the last 2 decades, and continuing to do that work. Adaptive Commons really came about 3 years ago, as I took a look back with a couple of colleagues to think about what might this look like at scale, particularly as we think about the lack of workforce and affordable housing that's happening across the country. And at the same time, what does it mean to look at underutilized assets? And so that's essentially how Adaptive Commons was born. And we're excited to share a little bit more about our why, as well as the work at Hopewell West, Block 4. And so really, as you all are aware of, I'm sure, teachers and other essential workers can't afford to live near where they work. And municipalities like school districts and cities own many assets that are either vacant or underutilized, and so there's an opportunity to use that, to lean into that oversupply, and to catalyze, really using creative financing, the opportunity for adaptive reuse or reuse for workforce housing.
So a little bit more about what we do. We kind of have two main focuses. So first and foremost, we build strategic partnerships with municipalities in order to transform vacant civic spaces into workforce affordable housing, and the other wraparound infrastructure that's needed to really create a complete community that is comfortable and livable, along with being sustainable and resilient for the future. And then secondly, we also invest in workforce affordable housing across the nation by providing low cost debt through a philanthropically enhanced fund that's at the national level. So diving a little bit more into what our strategic public partnerships look like, we work with public entities, with philanthropic partners, with private developers and other private community groups as well, to jointly finance and implement high impact projects that focus on workforce housing. By doing that, we help to identify civic sites that are ideal for adaptive reuse or redevelopment. We then design site-specific or portfolio-wide strategies to incorporate stakeholder input, to unlock financing and address the local housing need, both at a community level, at a neighborhood level, or even at a larger, more regional approach. In doing that, we assemble local development, design, and construction partners in order to make sure that we are tapping into local knowledge, providing local jobs, and also building place-based real estate development that makes sense for the communities we work in. And then finally, we invest in these projects. So we provide efficient, low-cost capital, which often is the missing piece that gets these projects over the hurdle to becoming a reality and to becoming a place where people live and work and thrive.
So in terms of how the creative financing works for us, as we think about projects at a much larger scale, we think about this national fund that Riley mentioned as a part of, paired with our strategic partnerships. So at a typical development level, if a developer were to go out to develop, even if they were to borrow from a CDFI or a high impact institution, they're likely borrowing, these days 8% or higher in some cases in the double digits, which causes these projects to look great on paper, but to ultimately not pencil. And so this is where our capital comes into play if needed, to bring the cost of capital down. And as we all know, time is money. If you can actually get these projects off the ground sooner rather than later, you then overcome the challenges that that might come when construction costs increase, or you're sitting on a project while you wait for another sort of public subsidy to come through, like low-income housing tax credits. And so we see this as an opportunity to get ahead of that, and a way to be paired with our strategic partnerships that create the value add for us and our partners. And so ultimately our goal, if not stated earlier, is to really implement 10,000 high-quality attainable homes in the next 10 years by working in partnership with municipalities like yours and others across the country. We see this as thinking about adaptive reuse and the reuse of civic-owned land, to see it both as an environmental opportunity as well as a social and financial impact. The opportunity to have a 33% reduction in carbon emissions through adaptive reuse. When you're actually activating these blocks, these spaces and places that are right now vacant or are blighted, there's an opportunity, a high opportunity to reduce crime. That first project that I mentioned that I did almost 20 years ago now, that was a site that no one wanted to go on by day. I remember walking that site with architects, and once it was ultimately developed, that was a space that, and it still is a space that everyone's comfortable walking on around at night. And so we see this as a high impact opportunity, not just at the financial level, but most importantly at the social level.
So to dive into exactly the opportunity that we see at Hopewell and specifically on Block 4, I know you all have likely reviewed the scope of work that we put forward, but these next few slides just kind of dive into how we see that scope of work going, and we would be happy to answer any questions you all have about what this means for Bloomington, what this means for Hopewell at large, and all of the above. So within the scope of work, we do see some research and due diligence that is necessary, mostly to make sure that we look at past efforts that have been put forth towards the progress at Hopewell, and making sure that we're in alignment with the community needs, with the local context, with anything that's kind of emerged since community engagement was done. And in that research and due diligence period, we also see ourselves beginning to identify potential partnerships on the local level that would both enable workforce housing and home ownership, which I know is something that's been a priority specifically for this portion of the site. In the pre-development and planning phase, we hope to engage local and regional design and development partners and really dive into the pre-development of Block 4. So that looks like a master plan of Block 4. That looks like beginning to think about what it looks like from a 3D perspective, from a massing perspective, and really making sure that we update the housing unit types and affordability levels that you all foresee for Bloomingtonians at this site specifically. And then the final portion of this initial scope of work would be a financial feasibility analysis with the ultimate goal of having a proposed capital stack. This would involve looking at homeownership models, this would involve looking at leasing structures, and it would ultimately result in a pretty clear plan of how to finance this whole portion of the site going forward, which in essence is also how we foresee kind of getting to the ground and hitting the ground running with development happening by the middle of next year. So this is just kind of that timeline that I was working through on the last slide, but as you can see, all of this leads to the idea that by July 2026, we would be headed towards development and having a very clear plan for what Hopewell West Block 4 looks like.
And so, well, piggybacking off O'Reilly, really we see in terms of deliverables, we know oftentimes these projects, the way they work, someone comes with a great plan and there's no plan to execute. And so this really lands on us executing on the plan that gets delivered. So first is that Block 4 plan that we described, producing schematic massive options for review, updating the unit count, the unit mix, so that it actually aligns and is complementary to the work that is happening. And then also Block 4 based on just what the current marketing conditions are and the available capital sources that we also help to source and bring to the table. And then lastly, that capital stack so that the project that is delivered is something that could be executed on.
So with that, we're happy to answer any questions. We're also looking forward to working with all of you, and we're really excited about the energy that's already gone into the whole redevelopment of Hopewell, and we're looking forward to being a part of what that could look like next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners, or anything further from staff as well?
I don't have anything other than we encountered Derwin. We met him at Harvard in our fellowship as well. He was also a faculty member during that fellowship, and we're really impressed with him and his work. And actually, Derwin and Riley both came to Bloomington and toured Hopewell and really got a feel for what we were targeting, have had long conversations with the mayor. Derwin even met with MCCSC as well to understand what their needs were and the gap in employment versus where you are capable of living. So we feel comfortable with their work. I know that this is new to you guys, but we would like to see it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, and this resolution would be to adopt the agreement between the RDC and Adaptive Commons. The amount of the fee would be an amount not to exceed $125,200, and that could be paid from the fund line that's listed there. And so again, it is approving the agreement that's attached to the resolution.
Okay, well, thank you. I think we'll have two different parts to our discussion. One may be questions specifically for the Adaptive Commons team, and then we may then conclude their presentation and have additional discussion among ourselves. So questions or comments from commissioners, please.
I have a question for Adaptive Commons about, can you say more about exactly how your relationship with Flintlock Lab will work?
Yeah, I can start off speaking to that. So we are aware of the work that Flintlock Lab is doing in Hopewell South, and we have reviewed their proposal. And we honestly see ourselves as supporting that work, as potentially helping to finance some of that work, and to also make sure that we're coordinating with them from a construction standpoint, from an urban planning standpoint, all of the above. I know that with the portion of Block 4 that we are now focusing on and the southern portion that they're focused on, there actually isn't a direct connection to the two sites, but we do want to support the overall redevelopment of Hopewell and see this portion of Block 4 as just one component of a larger mission and a larger idea of this kind of complete neighborhood, and we hope to support the entire project as best we can, both from phasing perspective, from a financing perspective, from a coordination perspective.
Let me also just call out that Block 4 is the Hopewell Garage. And so this type of housing is very different than what Flintlock has done. I have talked to Ally about this as well, and this is just not her wheelhouse to do a denser, more commercial building. I think we're envisioning condos that are wrapping the garage.
Can I add something else too?
Yeah.
What was really illuminating when Adaptive Commons visited the site, two things really stood out to me. One, the deep experience that Derwin has with just different financial vehicles, including New Markets tax credits, which we haven't used a lot of in this community. So I think when they talk about financing, they're really bringing a lot of experience to the table related to those types of tools. And then to Anna's point about thinking about the garage, I think their just vision when they came to the site truly understood the garage as an asset to the overall site that can really anchor and drive the development rather than how I think we've become accustomed to thinking about it. Just we as staff or you all as the redevelopment commission who's writing the check. So they really viewed the position of the garage as a strength, especially as it relates to the grocery store and the beeline. So I don't know if you want to say anything more about that, but I just wanted to.
No, I mean,
Yeah, happy to speak a little bit more to that as well. I think the garage we do see as an asset, and we also see it as an opportunity because of its height to add some density in this area in a way that might not be as comfortable on the southern side where Ally and the Flint Log team is working, whereas in this portion of the site, it does make sense to add housing that could be 4 to 5 stories tall, that could kind of address a different type of need and a different demographic than is maybe being addressed in Hopewell South. And we like the idea that we could not necessarily compete with Ally, but instead kind of have these two components that speak to different portions of the population in Bloomington and really open up opportunities for housing lots of different diverse populations in your community.
I just have a quick question that's based on Director Coopersmith's comment, which is, do you see New Markets tax credits as being part of the capital stack for Block 4?
Yeah, there's a huge opportunity, especially if you think about New Markets typically is for commercial use.
Right, that's my question.
What's interesting about workforce housing is there's a way to frame workforce housing to address the workforce component of New Market, but more than anything, any commercial component that goes, call it at the ground level. So say, let's just imagine we build a 5-story building, and the 4 stories above were housing. The bottom floor could be early child care or some other community amenity. You would not only utilize New Markets tax credits for that, but you could also leverage New Markets tax credits for the infrastructure that would help to make that project viable. So then you get to think about New Markets not just for that building alone, but the infrastructure in and surrounding that. So there are really creative ways to address using New Markets in ways that typically aren't used.
Thank you.
So I got a question. So to further your comment about financing, if you use that kind of financing, does it limit the type of commercial uses that would be available to us?
I would argue that it, in fact, encourages and enhances more community-oriented uses. New Markets tax credits essentially wants to ensure that more jobs are being created, you're bringing workforce back into a neighborhood, and so this opens up all kinds of opportunities that otherwise might be overlooked because of the lack of access to capital. And New Markets would then be that but-for scenario that allows it to happen. Does that answer your question, or?
Well, yes and no. I get your point, and I would agree with you. But let's just say it was going to be a law office or an accounting firm or a hair salon, or I mean, is there a approved list of uses that have to go along with that? With the use of that capital, or is it pretty much open to whatever our zoning allows?
It's not so much an approved list, but the amount of jobs that you were creating. And so, if you were building, if this were an accountant office versus, a 10,000 square foot warehouse that only housed a single employee, you're likely not going to get New Markets tax credits for the 10,000 square foot warehouse, but for the accounting firm that now is bringing, call it 25 to 30 new employees to the neighborhood that would otherwise not be there but for the new markets tax credits.
Okay, I don't envision that kind of commercial space there, so, but I get what you're saying, thank you.
And I just want to chime in here and say, we've had some experience with our public offerings that they're not specific enough to be successful. And we've wasted a lot of time with those. By getting consultants or folks that can help us really hone in and carve out exactly what we're trying to accomplish will help us be successful when it does come time to issue a public offering. That's why this work is very important to us.
Could you please, can I trouble you to put some slides back up? There was one about a third of the way in that showed a bar graph that divided up incentives versus financing and so forth. Can you put that back up, please? That's it. Yeah, and in particular, can you talk more about public subsidies? What have you seen in the past? What do you envision being appropriate for this particular setting?
Yeah, so if you look at the dotted line, if you look at the two dotted lines, the one above the dark square and then the one sort of in the middle of the dark square, at the top level, if you imagine without the right source of creative financing, without the right, so let's just step back. That first dotted line and the arrows, that show that space between, that's capital or public subsidy that would be needed if the Hopewell land was not available to be participated in the project. So think about the land itself as public subsidy. So now we being Bloomington, have brought the cost of development down because of the land being participated. The other arrow going up with that other dotted line shows the space in between the public subsidy that would be needed if you didn't have a 5 to 6% cost of debt, but instead your typical 8% and higher, you would need to have more public subsidy. So the public subsidy, that light gray square would essentially take up, without the land being participated and without the cost of capital being at a lower cost, you would essentially, that gray area would take up the space in between both dotted lines. What then would typically take the place of that public subsidy, or what would be that public subsidy, is typically low-income housing tax credits. And low-income housing tax credits at that level would likely be the 9% tax credits that give the highest level of subsidy and are also the most competitive to come by, and also take about 2 years to just even manifest if you get it, and also cost a few $1 million to get to that stage of application. If not the 9% tax credits, it would likely be then the 4% bond/tax credits, which are easier to come by, non-competitive, if you will, but still then restrict the kind of affordability we're talking about. As we understand it, this is open to workforce affordable, so not big A, but little a affordable, which still can go below 80% AMI, but also includes that 80 to 120 AMI, that missing middle that is often left out of the conversation. And so in order to address that, then that public subsidy needs to be replaced. And so this is a creative way to replace that public subsidy.
That's helpful. Thank you.
That's a good question.
I was wondering, how long has Adaptive Commons been in operation?
Adaptive Commons as a business has been in operation for 2.5 years. As I shared, I was a Loeb Fellow at Harvard 3 years ago now, and this was my main focus, to lift up a firm that actually focused primarily on workforce affordable housing via adaptive reuse. Prior to that, the work I had done had been tangential to this. It involved adaptive reuse, it involved housing, it involved school development, and I realized that the next 20, 30 years, I know I look like I'm 12, but for the next 30, 40 years, I want to dedicate my life and career to workforce affordable housing via adaptive reuse. And while Adaptive Commons is 2.5 years old, collectively, between Riley, myself, my partner Margaret, and Mike, we make up decades and decades of experience, both on the real estate and on the finance side.
Thank you. So The reason for my question is because I'm interested in, I appreciate your big picture presentation about the mission of Adaptive Commons. I'm interested in seeing examples of your portfolio that would be most parallel to what's intended for Hopewell Block 4, and I just need some more information about that. If you could help me with that, please.
Yes, and I could, we're actually currently in Denver working with a client that I would say is, we're working with the school district on, adaptive reuse strategy for their workforce housing. And so that's currently in our portfolio, but that's we'll be able to speak to that, as that continues to manifest. I would say the most, between the Sears Crosstown work or the other project in Memphis, that might be the closest, which is why we share those projects. Those are likely the closest aligned with Bloomington when you're talking about vacant land that is ground up development using creative financing like new market tax credits, and also working through affordable housing. Those are the closest representations.
I know that we shared a collective CV of our firm's joint experience and work that if it wasn't shared with you all, I'm sure we can make sure that it gets shared with you so that you have access to a larger overview with the details of past projects that team members have worked on.
I will just note that I did get to see that, and I was a little concerned because the projects that at least were featured in there were from, I think, 2016 to 2020, so kind of, a little older than maybe some of your more recent work. It also wasn't clear to me which members of your team were involved with which projects that were presented in that CV. So I feel like I need some more information about your firm to really see that it's a good fit for this project. And I don't know, again, you may not have that available now. You may want to pull that together from some of your current projects, but I think it's really fascinating what you're doing, and I appreciate, again, the big picture. I'm just still trying to look for a good connection between your expertise and what's needed here.
Okay, and I could say, just off of my head of knowing what we submitted, I was involved directly in most, but for one of those projects, or two of those projects would have been another one of my teammates, but I was at least involved in the majority of them.
Thank you.
Question. Everybody else? Okay. Have they been provided and seen the structural report for the garage?
I believe we have shared some of that. I don't remember if they've seen the most recent one, though. We've shared some information. It's been several months.
Okay. The reason I ask that is as they're looking at Derwin with his capital stack acknowledgement of how those structural components, because based on what I'm seeing, and we're talking about condominiums in regards to wrapping this garage, that structural component cost figure would have to be included.
Correct.
In regards to it. So with that and that question, then as you brought up the new market tax credit and our financing, which is the creative thing that we need to look at, where do we get the residential dollars to build that? If the new market tax credit, is that a straight conventional financing, or is that something that your debt financing takes into consideration because of the difficulty of financing condominiums in a workforce environment?
The debt financing that would go towards the residential. The new markets tax credit would be more towards the infrastructure that's necessary to build out everything that we're describing. But the debt financing would be for the residential.
Okay. And then everything from a land standpoint that this sets on in your capital stack situation would be a subsidy that would help to offset the overall cost.
Yes, and the expectation is that Bloomington would retain ownership of the land, that this would not need to be sold to a developer in order for this to be successful.
And then it would,
So you're saying it would be leased?
A ground lease, yes.
Ground lease,
okay. Ground lease that then would be part of the ownership basis, not a lease basis on the units themselves.
I think that there's an opportunity to potentially consider home ownership and leasing opportunities on this portion of the site and across Hopewell. So any sort of ground lease structure, I think we would collaborate with you all to make sure that both of those components work. But there is an opportunity here to look at a ground lease structure, but then a condominium ownership model where some of the units or all of the units on a portion of the site are for home ownership, but under some sort of like land trust model in which the ground lease is still held by the city.
Do you have examples of where you've been able to accomplish that? Or seen it accomplished?
We can provide them, yeah, there are several community land trust models that work with this sort of structure.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for our presenters today? Okay,
Appreciate it.
appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have in front of us, sorry, I'm just pulling the agenda back up. Resolution 25-141, which is the approval and agreement with Adaptive Commons for a comprehensive and coordinated design of Hopewell West Block 4. We had a chance to ask our questions directly of Adaptive Commons. I am just now, as I mentioned earlier, opening this for a separate line of question just among commissioners as opposed to two with the prospective firm. Any comments or questions about the proposed approval of this agreement?
I have one question in regards to, was this RFP put out to any other architectural?
We have not issued an RFP. This is to help us get an RFP together.
Okay, and the RFP would be for the?
Any offering to help us get it built. So
Okay.
this is to really laser focus in on how we're going to involve developers, builders, how we're going to get this done.
Okay, and with that selectiveness to try to get this in from a capital stack standpoint, and that, will this still create a situation where we need to go back through into the planning, the UDO?
Don't know yet.
So this is a first step situation that would still have to be looked at architecturally, engineering, and through a planning process.
And that's part of what they're going to do in their feasibility analysis too.
And the reason I ask that is given the complexity as we have to move forward to try to actually get something built, that schedule that they're looking at July of next year, that's extraordinarily aggressive based on.
Right. The longer you wait, the longer it's going to take
Right,
too.
exactly. But you know, given where we are on other projects in the process, how we change, is this another situation where we have to go through a PUD?
Don't know yet. I think when Derwin was here, we've talked about the garage. It needs repairs. Do we keep it? Do we let it go? But in talking to him, it became very clear that it really is an asset. And it's an asset that a developer could leverage to help get the product that we want, which is not student-centric housing. It's going to be ownership models or a mix to accomplish more housing at Hopewell. And I don't have capacity to do it on my own. Further, Derwin has background in these creative financing methods that are really challenging to find.
And the financing, and then based on the time frame and what they're looking at, is this, pardon my analogy, a soup to nuts type situation where it's start to finish? Or do they need to engage other local partnerships in order to do that? And then the continuation coming back and needing additional dollars on top of this?
Well, I think that that's part of this, is that they are going to be helping us engage with developers locally to try and figure out what the next steps are. I don't think that this is one and done. I think this is the first bite at the apple to get it done, get it going, get momentum, figure out what our zoning is, figure out what the feasibility is, figure out what the capital stack needs to be, get a general master site plan together for that block, which is rather large if you saw that on the plat for Hopewell West.
Which,
And Randy already mentioned this, but just so I'm clear, the current parking structure, the structural integrity of it, they're aware of the current state of that parking structure. They have, they can work with what they know we have now.
I think so. I think we talked when they were here about the need to spend approximately $5 million on the structure itself. That was one of the last quotes that I remember in that CE Solutions analysis. but it's somewhere around there. But to replace the entire parking garage is significantly more than sure. So it was worth the investment to try and get it fixed up. So.
We have that report that's available.
Yeah.
To the point of block 4 and where the garage sits, and then we have our open area, which has some environmental issues that we've discovered.
That are being
we're-
cleaned up,
we're
and
in the process.
we're working towards that closure letter now, and we're very, very close. So, in fact, we had the covenants that were required to be recorded, and you guys saw them earlier this year.
Yeah, as we look through block 4 and the pictorial that they brought in regards to condominiums and surrounding the garage with residential housing, the block 4 also includes that area. So
Yeah.
their creativeness, they're looking at how they reutilize that lot, how this capital stack would work, and how we would utilize residential or commercial mixed use in regards to the garage. That still leaves the area that to the east and north. It would still have to be determined what would go there.
Correct.
And that is not part of their scope.
Theirs is just block 4.
Okay. Well, block 4 includes that area.
So yes, they're master planning the entire block 4.
They would be master planning it with, and just looking at the area, that's a pretty significant area.
Correct.
That would
It's a
be
pretty big lot.
a big lot that we'd have to look at what it is and then what the community, based on our previous needs are. Are they gonna help decide that, or are we gonna help direct them on that?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Thank you.
I also just want to say that the mayor has joined us, and she may have something she would like to comment on regarding the Adaptive Commons proposal.
I'm happy to comment, but I'm coming in fresh to this particular conversation. I'll just say that we had a really pretty phenomenal site visit with Adaptive Commons, and they were able to see things that really just hadn't been pointed out in the past, some possibilities that we thought really were worth working towards, and their ability to plan and tap different kinds of capital stacks for these kinds of things is really an asset that I think we need in this community, and that especially if we're going to do some innovative things at Hopewell, getting them on board is, I think, going to be a big asset to this overall project.
Thank you. Other questions from commissioners?
Jane, can you just further explain to me why this is not a project for Flintlock?
Yeah, I can. I think because we're starting with block 4, which is targeted for more density than what is appropriate at South and what we're committed to for South. So this just isn't, it's not apples to apples. It's a different animal, and it requires different financial modeling. So if you compare to what Flintlock's doing on South, for example, they're working on baked-in affordability with, maybe or maybe not contemplation of land value, but they're working on just really increasing the affordability, reducing the cost through incremental decisions that we're making and making those improvements to the UDO or making recommendations. Sorry, I'm out of line. Sorry, the PUD. Baking that into the PUD. So with Adaptive Commons, it's really site planning this block, planning for density, and they're delivering us to a different phase of the development. So they're doing the strategic thinking for the whole block, financial planning, and then we'll tee us up so that we can go after the developers at the end of it. So I think in that timeline, when it said July, we're ready for development, if we were a private entity, we would be like, yes, let's go break ground. But as the RDC, where you would be at that moment is, let's go release a new public offering.
So you've talked to Flintlock about this. They've been.
I have.
All right, so they're aware of it.
Absolutely. Flintlock
and they can be collaborative with.
Flintlock is excited to work with Derwin. They know each other. Also, Allie was very clear to say that this is not her wheelhouse. more density is not their wheelhouse as far as big multifamily structures or what we're talking about here.
She said she will not do it. That's not,
But
Pretty
she
clear.
will help,
not, yeah, she said she will not do large form
right,
residential.
but she will
What
support
lot
them.
makes the neighborhoods? Yes, they're.
And so she's gonna help by sharing her code analysis, by helping to prop them up for success from what we've already learned with Flint.
So is the basis we're looking at because of Derwin and their past financial experience in regards to get the capital stack on a unique product, unique sites and things, one of our primary goals while we're looking at hiring another out-of-state firm?
Yes.
Okay, and then they would collaborate with some local firms in regards to architectural and any other engineering things that are necessary.
I believe, yes, it will be a collaboration.
Because in the past, we have went through, out of state, here's the idea, and then it's kind of fell flat. So it's in the past. It's in the
We've
past.
fallen flat with numerous RFPs.
And it was prior to this administration, so I'm not putting anything out. I'm just looking at the situation of another thing where we're consulting and we want to get to building.
Right. Well, and the RDC currently has an enormous number of projects. As you're well aware, by the fact that we're in, 150 plus resolutions for the year. The staff does not have enough capacity to try and take this on as well. So if we want to make measurable momentum at Hopewell, we need someone that knows what they're doing.
They do refer to, under financial feasibility, I suppose this refers to financial entities, but they do talk about identifying key partnerships, as well as capital sources. I was just looking to see where they might reference community engagement, local professional expertise. I don't particularly see it, but it's certainly something I imagine we can make clear that, to your point, Randy, that having more knowledge from potential other entities that might participate in this, having that knowledge early on is a benefit.
I'm just gonna add, for me, I think it's truly exciting to hear of a firm like Adaptive Commons, some of their innovation and ideas. I'd love to see what that could bring to Hopewell. My main area of kind of hesitation is when I went to their website, I did not see a portfolio of projects at all. That was why I reached out to Anna to ask for a portfolio, and what I got was interesting, but did not really fill in certain blanks for me. Again, interesting, but as I mentioned, I wasn't sure who on their team had done what. I appreciate that Derwin had done some of them, but there's a wide range of projects, not all of which are, at least in my mind, quite a fit with Hopewell. So I would appreciate the opportunity to get some examples of written deliverables from comparable planning, pre-development engagements, in addition to the capital stack that they might want to bring to it. I think it's great, the idea to think about bringing new markets tax credits into it. But I feel like there's just some open-endedness. Again, I'm all for trying to move things forward, but I really want to make sure it's being done with due diligence. And that's my comment at this point, is about the due diligence of feeling like I want to know what they've done that's really closely aligned with this project that would be an example of the portfolio that I'm looking for to feel comfortable moving forward.
Sure.
Can I comment?
Yeah.
I have the same concern as Deborah does, and I did not look at their website. This is just purely from talking to them. I think they bring a lot to the table, and I think having a firm like that or them would be beneficial, so I'm not opposed to having somebody on board. But I also don't want to be their next resume builder. I want somebody that can really get the job done. And so I wasn't convinced that they were ready for us, quite frankly. They talked a good game, but I'm just not sure.
Is there anything you could share in response to that might help us feel better?
No, but I mean, I think that you guys have a choice, whether you vote to approve, deny, or table it and allow us to get some more information to you so that you do feel comfortable. But the likelihood is that that's not gonna come up until January, February of 26. So it's completely your call. We can gather some more information. It's your decision.
So, quick question. What's the first day of our next meeting?
It is January 5th.
January 5th.
That's our organizational meeting, however. So that'll be the meeting that we approve the calendar and
So it'd be the 12th then.
well, that happens to fall on a holiday, the following meeting. So I believe the meeting after that is going to be the first week of February.
I think it's February 2nd, maybe.
And also, your appointments are for 1 year. However, the code says that you continue to serve until you're replaced by a qualified person. So it is always my hope that when the first of the year rolls around, that that could be done. Appointments could be done from the mayor's office, from the city council, so that we can make sure that we've got the team going forward. So, but as the statute holds, you serve until you're replaced. There's not a deadline on that, but sooner is better than later.
Yeah, in order. So that actually works out fairly well, because that gives the time frame to ask any additional questions, have all the answers to whether it be the group here or whether it be the next group, so they have full understanding and all of the questions that's been asked here. We don't have any issues. Now, I hate to put things off anymore, but if I would make a recommendation to table it till that first available meeting to garner all the information so that us or any new commissioners have everything to make the decision to move this forward into a financing and a build as soon as possible. So I'll put that as a motion. Live or die.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second? To table. The motion is to table. I'm just rephrasing to make sure it's clear. To table resolution 25-141, which is the approval of the agreement with Adaptive Commons for comprehensive and coordinated design of Hopewell Block 4, West Block 4.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Get all that information. Be fantastic. And then we'll get this moving.
We have a comprehensive list of what information.
We don't, and I'm going to send you guys an email right now. Please respond to that email individually to me with your questions that I can answer.
Thank you. Okay. Next item on our agenda is resolution 25-151, which is the approval of the adoption of the Citizen Advisory Committee's recommendations for the allocation of the 2026 Community Development Block Grant Funds. Who would like to speak to that?
This is also the public hearing portion.
This is, can you,
Right,
we're
okay.
starting a public
Okay,
hearing.
we are starting the public hearing for this portion of the meeting for the approval of the adoption of the Citizens Advisory Committee's recommendations for the allocation of 2026 Community Development Block Grant Funds.
All right, yeah, you guys should have known if I was here, we were going to talk about CDBG. So,
I just thought you liked this.
some of you. No, all of it. Anyway, I'd like to thank you guys for the opportunity to present tonight. I'm here to present the 2026 CDBG allocations that the CAC recently awarded based on the applications submitted and the guidance that the new consolidated plan provided. A little bit about CDBG. For the past 50 years, community partners have worked hand in hand with HUD to deliver impactful change, especially for low to moderate income communities through CDBG. Since 1974, HUD has invested over $170 billion in urban, suburban, and rural communities through the CDBG program. HUD awards grants to entitlement community grantees, which the City of Bloomington is one, to carry out a wide range of community development activities directed towards revitalizing neighborhoods, economic development, and providing improved community facilities and services. In order to receive funding, activities that are applied for by the applicants must meet a two-pronged test. One, eligibility under federal regulation, and two, ability to meet a national objective. All activities must meet one of the national objectives for the program, which is the three are benefit to low to moderate income persons, prevent or eliminate slum and blight, and or meet an urgent need, which fulfill community development needs that have a particular urgency based on existing conditions that pose a serious or immediate threat to the health or welfare of the community. A little bit about the process. Some of you actually were involved in the process. Randy and Deborah were. We appreciate your willingness to serve and the work that you put in. So every year we make an estimate of what the allocation will be, and we base that on the previous year, what we received as our actual allocation. For the 2026 funding year, which starts June 1st of 26 and runs through May 31st of 2027, we estimate the total allocation would be $778,293. Our allocation is always broken down as follows: 65% for physical improvements, which would be $505,890.45. 15% for social services, which would be $116,743.95. And 20% for administration, which is $155,658.60. In October, we start accepting applications. Once they are checked for eligibility, they are presented to the CAC, Citizens Advisory Committee. The CAC examines the applications and listens to applicant presentations and then deliberates to determine the allocations with contingency language for more or less funding once we find out our final allocation. After the CAC, the allocations must be presented to the RDC and then to the City Council. As I said before, both the RDC and the City Council had representation on the CAC. We do this because that is the way is laid out in our Citizens Participation Plan, which we developed based on federal regulations. I'm going to read through the projects that were presented, both the physical improvements and the social services. Boys and Girls Club had a project for gym improvements and security access point upgrades. Life Designs had a project for group home flooring. Middle Way House is going to install a new fire panel at 338 South Washington. My Sister's Closet has a major renovation project at the new location that they've acquired. New Hope for Families is going to be doing HVAC work and a build out of the basement of the family shelter. And Summit Hill Community Development Corporation is going to be redoing the Reverend Butler Playground and surrounding courtyard. The social services, I'll read down through the list, but pretty much all of them is mostly staff salaries and food distribution. We have Community Kitchen, Beacon, Hoosier Hills Food Bank, Boys and Girls Club, New Hope for Families, Middle Way House, New Leaf, New Life, Courage to Change Sober Living, Pantry 279, Summit Hill Community Development Corporation, and My Sister's Closet. So again, we are bringing you the 2026 CDBG allocations, which were voted upon by the CAC to fulfill our federal obligation of fulfilling our Citizens Participation Plan. Easy for me to say. We do this every year. These are great projects. I never envy the work that the CAC has to do to make these allocations. We typically get at least 2 times the amount of request more than what we are awarded, so they have to do a lot of hard work to determine who's going to get the funding and how much, so we really appreciate their efforts. Available for any questions that you might have.
I just note that Exhibit A and B have the breakdowns for each of the entities mentioned, and that is part of the resolution.
Any questions or comments from commissioners?
Quick question in regards to, as we look at the allocations for the administration, that is for each individual recipient for their administration of the grant, and not 20% for taking care of you having to administer it.
So the 20% is for the city of Bloomington's administration of the grant.
That's what I wanted to verify.
Yeah.
That it was to cover the costs of you being able to administer these grants and verify that these projects are going to be done. Which brings me to my second question. Based on what you see, Matt and Cody, in your experience there, you feel as though these, not feel, but you know that these projects will be able to be done within the time frame in order to hit the CBDG requirements? Or to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of our knowledge, the applicants did present timelines that would meet what we need to expend funds.
Thank you. And I appreciate both of you guys' hard work on this.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? I'll just say, as somebody who's participated in the Social Services Committee for several years, it is a hard work, but it's amazing the incredible work that the nonprofits in our community do, and I appreciate having the opportunity to at least see what they're doing and be part of supporting them in this way. But yeah, it's one small part of what they need. So, but glad that this CDBG funds are available to support them, and that the city makes that happen. This is a public hearing. I'm looking for any public comment on resolution 25-151 on the CDBG recommendations for 2026, either in person or online. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for this resolution, please.
I'll move approval of resolution 25-151.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, and the public hearing is now closed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is resolution 25-152, which is the approval of the conceptual, comprehensive, and coordinated design of Hopewell South, blocks 8, 9, and 10 for rezoning. And I'll just note that the Redevelopment Commission was invited to be part of a city council convening with the mayor earlier, just before this meeting, and this is regarding that we did not have a chance to ask any questions, which is fine. It was really the council's meeting, but I appreciated being invited. But this is our chance to discuss anything that may have come up in looking at the proposal as well as what's in our packet. So I will ask who's going to present on this.
I'm happy to talk about this tonight. So as you know, and you learned earlier today or through this process, the Hopewell South site cannot be developed to achieve the city's housing goals under the existing R4 zoning standards due to dimensional restrictions, minimum lot area and width, and frontage requirements. An analysis of development under the current zoning regulations allowed for only 28 homes to be constructed at price points unattainable to a Bloomington resident earning the area median income. Hopewell South planned unit development is designed to not only guide the redevelopment of these blocks, but to also serve as a prototype for attainable urban housing in Bloomington. The PUD seeks to demonstrate how smaller lots, context-based frontage, and simplified subdivision processes can expand home ownership opportunities without compromising neighborhood form or environmental performance. In doing so, it advances the city's broader objectives of fostering compact, connected, and inclusive neighborhoods as outlined in the comprehensive plan and the Hopewell Master Redevelopment Strategy. So what you guys are actually being asked to approve right now is the conceptual approval of what we've filed for the Plan Commission, which is on January 12th. So in order to stay on track and to potentially have approval this spring, in order to hit the building season over the summer, we would need your conceptual approval of what we have filed, the materials that were filed. They are also in the packet. The project's overall aim is to deliver the homeownership opportunities, and the PUD that is in front of you can reduce the average home price by more than 30% and provide 70% more total homes than can be built by right under the existing R4 zoning. This is not a final version yet. Changes can be made. I think our last day to give the planning department changes on what we've filed is December 29th. But we do need your approval to move forward to Plan Commission. And even at the first hearing for Plan Commission, there are likely going to be changes and discussions as we gather community input and hear what really, how we need to zone in on what is right. So this is just one of those steps that you're conceptually approving what we have filed.
Thank you. Open for questions and comments from commissioners on resolution 25-152, please.
Go ahead.
Okay, quick question.
Everything's a quick question. General, quit saying that.
Good point. I tend to do that and it gets a little longer. Okay, long story short, the PUD that's just been presented, we've looked through. Ally did a great job at the council presentation.
Mm-hmm.
What's the number of homes we're presenting so the public has an idea?
I
of what we're
believe
looking to go
it's
to?
98.
Okay, so we're looking to go from 28 in the beginning to 98 in a walkable area close to our community that will generate more tax dollars.
Yeah, and of course, these could change, but right now, what we're targeting is ranging in sales price from 83,000 all the way up to 653,000, only a couple of those units. With the very vast majority, I think at least 50% of the units being built are going to be attainable to 100% of our area median income, which is really incredible considering building costs, land costs. You know, that's really not something that we're going to see with new construction.
And there's the process that goes through. We'll have Plan Commission,
Yes.
and then based upon it being a PUD, then it'll need to go to Common Council. And
It
then,
does go
and
to
then be
council.
signed by the mayor.
Yes, that is-
Everything moves forward.
That is correct. And then there's a plating process as well that will go back through Plan Commission.
So your original estimate of being able to break ground before the season is over next year is a realistic possibility.
Assuming that we have approval as this moves forward. So we're guesstimating that we'll have at least 2 meetings with the Plan Commission. So we'll see. Right now, including plating, I think we're looking at the end of April, beginning of mid part of May before we'll be fully done with the plating process, assuming that everything gets approved.
It's an assumption process. It could go longer, but I'm trying to look at the best case scenario based on the cooperative nature that everybody has to get additional affordable housing in our community.
We have been listening to your demands for get this done. I want this done next summer. We need housing. And so to stay on target, we need this approval.
I believe there's a few units that may be able to get started sooner because they can do some quick lot line adjustments to be able to break ground, that's my understanding.
That's correct. Yeah.
So you may see dirt moving sooner.
Before the PUD is approved? What do you mean?
I'm sorry?
Before the, soon, what did you mean by sooner?
Yes, there's a few of the lots that if they change the lot lines, which you can do through an administrative adjustment, then they could go ahead and start work. It would still end up being part of the overall PUD, but it would meet the criteria at that point in time to go ahead and to be able to get a permit.
I'm just going to quick mention that even though it's not in the redevelopment commission's packet, if members of the public want to see the presentation, it's a great presentation. It's really impressed with what Flint Lab has put together, and I invite people to see it. It's actually under the city council meeting packets for December 15th. I invite you to take a look because it's a great presentation and really kind of gives a really strong idea of what's being considered as it starts to move through towards the Plan Commission. But if there's no other questions or comments from commissioners, sorry, John. I should always make sure I look to my right, and I'm doing it.
Overall, I have a lot of support for this, but there's some pieces of this design that I'm struggling with, but I don't want to hold up the works because of that. So you said conceptually, this is what we're approving. So where in this process does the RDC have the opportunity to discuss or explore some specifics of the plan and not dwell on it here to hold up a vote for the overall PUD process, which I would like to support.
Well, time is of the essence, of course. So anytime between now and I would say our February Plan Commission meeting, we can receive your input, but I would prefer it sooner than later because if there are changes that need to be made, we need to do it now.
Well, changes.
And are you concerned with the home types, or because that's not necessarily what we're approving right now? What we're approving is the layout.
Well, that's a good example. I would question the marketability of some of the home types. Now, I don't know if they're there just as examples or are by this vote, is this what we're trying to make happen? I question, in some cases whether it's reality or not. That's just one example of something that has come to my mind.
Sure. Well, you're not approving the house types right now. You are simply approving the PUD, the lot layout, and where the infrastructure is going. So those conversations will come back up.
Okay, will it come to this body?
Yes.
Thanks for that question.
But I guess I would also point out that there are other bodies involved in that as well. There's gonna be other conversations, with Flintlock, with, Plan Commission. I mean, there's gonna be obviously other conversations about the housing type, so. I don't think that this body necessarily has 100% control over that issue.
Understood.
Okay. Anything else from commissioners? Otherwise, I'm going to open up for public comment, either in person or online. Not seeing anything. I'll entertain a motion on resolution 25-152.
Ladies first.
Move approval of resolution 25-152.
I'll second.
First and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is resolution 25-153, which is approval of funding for change order package number 1 for Hopewell West. It looked like Mr. Kanoki is here to talk to us about that.
Yes, Kendall Kanoki, Engineering Department. Thank you very much. So Hopewell West, just as a refresher, this is the first phase of the infrastructure that's under construction now. So this is Jackson Street, directly adjacent to the core building, as well as Rogers Street. This specifically is approval for the funding of a package of 4 change orders that occurred on the project. I'll just go through them one by one, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. So the first one is for the addition of a sanitary manhole structure. This is because the stub we were connecting to was not at the elevation that it was supposed to be at, and that was a different project, the First Street project. So getting that through NDOT and going through, the easiest thing to do is just drop a new structure, keep this project moving along. So that's where that $5,225 is coming from. Change order number 3 is the addition of some sod for some stabilization. Number 4 is some additional conduit. So this was essentially to prevent Duke Energy from ripping up our new road. So we decided to drop some conduit in so they could go through there to serve the new core building. And then number 5 is the biggest one in this group, but this is where our consultant prepares a quantity takeoff of the proposed design, and he did not quite pick up all of these items, so I'll just list them quickly. Gate valve with valve box, sanitary lateral, a storm inlet, and PVC conduit. So these were listed lower on the quantity takeoff that the bidders use than what was actually on the plan. So we are over on these quantities, and that's added an additional $42,977.50. So I'll say the consultant had a great design and a great takeoff on all the other items, but miscalculated on the amount of conduit and things. But this is cost that would have been included in the original bid had the quantities been correct. And that's why it's non-recoverable, which it says there, which means we can't go after the consultant and try to get the money back. I think that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
And for the record, change order 2 was in the amount of $5,225, and change order 3 was in the amount of $870, and change order 4 was in the amount of $2,560. And you've already heard the change order 4.
Okay.
The
Yes,
last one.
questions, please.
So,
Maybe I'm just not following the resolution, but it looks to me like we're approving change order package 1, and it doesn't even refer to anything else.
Dana, did you make this?
Should be 1 for 4.
It's a little confusing because the exhibits are described as exhibit A through B, although then within the text it's change order 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, the text of the resolution doesn't appear to
Number
reference.
2, it doesn't really reference anything but package 1,
yeah,
even though the exhibits are.
in the whereas clause, it says that the attached exhibits A through D collectively the change order package number 1. So then in the therefore clause is change order package number 1, which the whereas clause has described as those 4 exhibits.
Yeah, but I thought we were doing 2 through 4.
It's change orders 2 through 4, but it's a package of change orders. I didn't draft it, but I'm just saying that's legally it covers it
That makes sense.
because it lists what the package number 1 is, and then it says approving that package.
All right. Thank you.
Long story short, we got $153,444.77.
Well, this change order is only for $51,632.50.
Yeah, okay, I apologize, we already hit the other one. Yeah, we already did the other one, so. Sorry, $52,000 miss, but we'd have paid for it anyway, correct? And the
That's
quantities
correct.
have been- The 42,000 is the big thing, it's a quantity miss, and
Yes.
how we missed it is,
Yes, the approximately 43,000. The other 3 are, just changes, construction changes.
and you're satisfied with it
Yeah.
as a professional. And is everything moving along in your time frame and the quality that your expectations are?
Yes, the contractor is in liquidated damages, LDs, so they're running behind schedule. So there's a few things that they ran out of time before the winter. So next spring we're going to get the full pavement markings put down. They weren't able to put those down before it got cold. But generally I think we're probably going to be actually under the total estimated cost for the project. So there'll be a balancing change order at the end. I think we'll be a little under that.
It's all over what our original projected cost was.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? I'm just gonna, I agree it's kind of eventually legible in terms of how the resolution is written. I would strongly agree, because there's not even one place where the total is. It's like subtracting, changing the total to the total. There's not anything that adds up exhibits A through D. So I'm just asking from a legal resolution, whoever in the legal department is drafting this stuff. I mean, there's occasionally times where we do come up with, or do notice errors in numbers. And we want it to be as clear as possible so that we actually can make sure that the numbers are written accurately in the resolution. And I believe they are in this case. I'm just saying that it takes a little while to make sure that that's the case. And to the extent that the resolution can be written clearly to say, Exhibit A is for this much, Exhibit B is for this much, it totals this much, and this is the change order, that would be much more helpful to make sure that we're, again, doing the due diligence of, is this being approved for what it is intended to be approved for. So just, again, that's just mostly from a legal resolution drafting question. Put it really clearly in there so it's really easy to be like, yep, that's what it is. We can check the numbers and make sure that it is delivering what it's intended to. So that's my last word.
And we'll discuss that in legal.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Any public comment? Commissioner comment is closed. Anything from the public, either online or in person? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for resolution 21-153.
Move approval of resolution 25-153.
We've got a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And our last item of new business for the evening is resolution 25-154, which is the approval of a lease for the Forge with Prometheus Energetics LLC. Who would like to speak to that?
Mr. Fernandez is here from.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Good evening, thank you, everybody. I think the memo I sent out, hopefully you had a chance to read, is pretty straightforward. This is a proposed lease for approximately 2,400 square feet on the first floor of the Forge. That's a company called Prometheus Energetics. They're a company that's in the defense tech space. It's a joint venture between two really major players. So they're technically a startup, but I guess in the startup world, you would consider a hyper growth startup. You may have read that they're planning to build a very large scale manufacturing and engineering facility in Greene County as part of a large campus that's being developed in proximity to Crane, but they haven't started construction yet. So they were looking for a space where they could attract some of the professional staff, some of the engineering, some of the the CEO and some of the other executives, so that they'd be able to have a good place to operate out of while they're doing the larger scale project. That's why this, unlike our previous lease, is it's a 3-year lease. Our prior leases were all 5. I felt that it was worth compromising and doing a 3-year lease with, they have 3 options to renew for an additional year because of the nature of the company, the brand of the company. It's a pretty big addition to our ecosystem. I mean, in that sector, they're very well known, and they're very well capitalized, to say the least. The discussion I had with their leadership is that since we would be looking at a 3-year lease rather than a 5-year lease, we'll work together on their tenant improvement plans to make them pretty basic, nothing hyper customized, so that it'd be much easier to re-tenant at the end of 3 years if they decide that they don't want to exercise an option. The only other difference in this lease is the rent, you'll notice, is just slightly higher than our previous leases because we baked into all the leases a annual COLA or inflationary increase of 2.5%. So that's actually reflected in this lease since they would not begin paying rent until 2026. So it's $21.53 is the base rent plus CAMs plus their own electric charges. They also have a request in the lease for a first right of refusal for the remaining 1,800 square feet on the first floor. I don't know if they actually, use that or not, but they were just curious if they could have that just in case they decide they want to expand. I did not include, as John West pointed out, a defined term in terms of how long they have to consider that. Retrospect, that would have been a good thing to do. I think given the relationship, we can include that in the notice that we're required to give them a set deadline for responding. I wouldn't want to hold up the lease over that just because it's a very corporate bureaucracy, to say the least, that it will take several weeks to go through the legal department and do an amendment for something like that. Just not because it's complicated, not because it's controversial. It's just their corporate governance requires board approval of any of their leases, and then it will require chasing down 2 executive signatures. So it'll take a while. So hope you just give me a little grace on that and trust that we'll be able to manage that process. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions. I guess, the good news with this is that we started the year with a goal of 50% occupancy. If the commission approves this, we'll be up to 86. So we're doing pretty well.
Thank you very much. Open to questions and comments from commissioners on resolution 25-154. Any questions or comments?
Love to have the entire facility, but it's good to have what we got coming to Bloomington.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's a whole different topic, Randy, about where we would do that. But yeah.
Appreciate your effort on that.
Yeah, thank you.
I did want to say that this is based on the model lease that you approved.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments from commissioners, we'll open it for public comment, either online or in person. Seeing none, I will invite a motion for resolution 25-154.
I'll move approval of resolution 25-154.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congrats, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay, one more item of business, and it is old business. And that is resolution 25-136. Supporting the convention center host hotel on College Square property. We have this again revisited, but I'll open it to staff for any comments before we move forward, because there's been some changes in the resolution since we last met.
So Jane Cooper Smith, Economic and Sustainable Development. I'll take it and offer a little intro and context. You all are familiar with it at this point. This is maybe a little bit more for the public and the public record. And then I'll pass to Marty Rice, Corporation Counsel, who can do a deeper dive into the legislation and the changes that have been included this week. So the Monroe County Capital Improvement Board, via the interlocal agreement signed in February 2024, is empowered to select the site of a hotel, oversee that partnership, and manage development in collaboration with the city and county. The project, the convention center and the hotel project have a long history, but I'll begin in June 2024 when the CIB issued a request for proposals for a host hotel developer. I misspoke there. That's the beginning of the hotel project, to be clear. The convention center is the one with a long history. The CIB received 7 responses to that request for proposals, and they heard presentations from 3 developers in September 2024. They selected a developer in Dora Hospitality, and they communicated with Dora Hospitality about available but not necessarily gratis sites to the hotel developer. The developer selected the RDC-owned property at 200 to 216 South College Avenue, which is called College Square, or the former Bunger and Robertson property. They selected that as their preferred location, and so they engaged the city in discussions in late 2024, cities at the staff level. Additional staff and members of the RDC joined those discussions in 2025. From the beginning of those negotiations or discussions, the hotel developers described a significant gap in order to deliver on the scope of the host hotel. When the city, on our side of the negotiations, required full land value as was previously requested, that amount simply appeared as a required subsidy in a different part of their pro forma. So the city considered a range of partnership structures to determine how best to advance the project at the site, and this body approved expenditures totaling $400,000 to advance investigation of the site and design of the building while it continued negotiating with the developer. Initial site work, like soil borings, has gone forward. No design work has advanced in the absence of a letter of intent with the developer. City staff put forth legislation to the RDC for consideration at its December 1st meeting. The RDC held a public work session on December 10th in order to provide additional public space to discuss the project, and more specifically to do that with members of the Common Council. That discussion informed amendments to the legislation, which Margie will discuss momentarily. For members of the public, you can find access to the meeting packet for that work session by Googling Bloomington RDC and navigating to the work session on December 10. Broadly, staff recommends consideration of the hotel project, which is a critical piece
to a major economic driver for our community. The hotel will fill critical demand gaps, allowing the convention center to operate at its full capacity. It will drive outside revenue into the community, and it will generate tax revenue via the food and beverage innkeepers and property taxes. And with that, I'll pass to Margie.
So at your last meeting, you guys discussed this resolution, and several council members came to the meeting and reminded the redevelopment commission that they objected to this parcel being offered to a developer for free or for a nominal cost. So based on that meeting, staff went back and edited this resolution, and I know some RDC members provided some feedback. So the amended resolution is based on some changes that you guys had requested. I would point you to, well, let me just say this has 14 kind of whereas clauses to give background, and then 4 resolutions. The third resolution has been edited, and essentially it says that the redevelopment commission provides notice of its commitment to a host hotel project by making known that the real estate at College Square, which is bounded by College and 4th and then 3rd Street on the south, may be made available in some form to the host hotel project at a nominal cost to the project if it furthers the best interest of the economic development. It also makes very clear what this resolution does not do. This resolution shall not be construed as approving the final development terms, a land conveyance, or a specific financial structure, all of which shall require separate RDC review and approval. You are not negotiating in this resolution a deal with a hotel developer. So let's just get that off the table. What you are doing in this resolution, if you pass it, is signaling to the world, to the city council, to hoteliers, to the CIB, that the roughly 2.4 acre bit of land that you own that is in need of redevelopment, it is an underdeveloped property in downtown Bloomington. You are signaling that you think this is a good location for a hotel, and you may make it available at a nominal cost. Nominal meaning, by dictionary definition, very small or below the real value or cost. Not saying you are, just saying you might. And the CIB has chosen this hotelier that we've been trying to negotiate an LOI. We do not have an LOI. However, the world needs to know whether this lot, this underdeveloped lot in downtown, is intended for a hotel and going to be made available for a hotel or not. And you guys are the owners, and so here we are tonight. Please do, 3 of you are appointed by the mayor, 2 of you are appointed by the council. Council has made its wishes known. The mayor is here tonight. I would encourage you to take all of the feedback and input that you have been given to date into consideration, and you get paid the big bucks to make these sorts of calls. And so with that, I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
And I would add that in addition, as Margie mentioned, that you would only do a project at a nominal cost, anything less than fair market value, if it furthers the best interest of economic development in the city of Bloomington. That means you would have to be convinced that that was the right project, and whatever concessions you might or might not make would be the right concessions in order to make that project happen. So it still gives you the authority to choose whether or not you feel it's in the economic best interest to have any conveyance. So you're retaining that authority.
I also want to just say for the record that to date, the county has contributed about 1.5 acres of land for the convention center where it is currently being built. The assessed value of that land is about $1.7 million. We know that's low for 1.5 acres, but that's just the AV. There's not a current sales price to bring that up. Property that you guys own is worth about 7 to 8 million based on an appraisal we received and the sales price. The city has also contributed to the convention center project in general about $46 million worth of bond. So there's been a land contribution by the county. There's been a giant bond contribution of food and beverage tax dollars by the city. And you're here tonight to discuss whether you want to make this lot available for a possible host hotel site.
Thank you. Questions or comments from commissioners? I will note, in addition to the comments that people have, I have a proposed amendment to this, but I want to make sure that people have a chance to say what they want to say before I charge ahead with it. If there's nothing, I will introduce it. So, I have hard copies if you want to look at it in front of you. Feel free to. I've got 7 copies here, so if you want it, you can take a look at it. The 2 main areas that I'm proposing an amendment to are on page 2 of the resolution, and they both are kind of centered around that word nominal, because even though I fully appreciate the hard work that staff has done, having the meeting, the work session earlier last week, all good to hear from people, to really collaborate to get towards a fruitful outcome for this. Talking about giving away our nominal cost of land, again, we will have a chance to revisit that later. I'll go over the specific amendment first and then just provide my commentary after that. So again, this is page 2, the last whereas. My proposal is that this would read, whereas in addition to the incentives already mentioned above, the RDC has determined that the real estate at College Square necessary for the host hotel may be made available in a form and on terms to be determined by the RDC and structured to protect the city's best interest and limit public risk. So it's taking out the at nominal cost, and then provided that such participation is, it was just to kind of tighten that up. To make it clear that, again, the RDC is prepared to make this available, but we are not stating the terms under which that availability is being made yet. And then the comparable one is under clause 3. The Bloomington Redevelopment Commission hereby provides notice of its further commitment to the host hotel project by making known that the real estate at College Square, if necessary for the host hotel, may be made available in some form and on terms to be determined by the RDC and structured to protect the city of Bloomington's best interest and limit public risk. Again, taking out the at nominal cost to the project, because it feels like it's reducing the leverage capacity of this. So this is based on concerns that we heard about fiscal discipline, use of public assets, and maintaining appropriate oversight. I feel like these are legitimate concerns and they matter to me. So that's the reason for my proposed amended language, taking out the phrases like nominal cost, which can be read as a pricing commitment. Removing that language helps ensure this resolution does not signal a subsidy level before the RDC has fully evaluated a concrete proposal from a hotel developer that reflects the anticipated sources of financing beyond what the RDC can offer. From my perspective, the purpose of this resolution is to confirm that the RDC is willing to consider making College Square site available in support of a host hotel while preserving our leverage and fiduciary responsibility. The amendment documents that flexibility without pre-committing the RDC to a deal. Importantly, this amendment does not change the resolution's intent. Any binding decision still requires a separate vote by this body in public. With the convention center expansion already underway, I do believe it's appropriate to vote on an amended resolution tonight to create a pathway to move forward on a key component of this project. So, thank you for your consideration of this proposed amendment. So,
Do you need a second for the amendment?
I think I've introduced it. I think we need a first and then a second and then a vote. That's my understanding of the procedure, but I'll defer to our support for that. So,
I'll make that motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
okay, we have a first and a second. Would we like to discuss further before a vote?
Yes. Okay. Oh, can
Oh, I'm just saying we have first and a second, so it's on the table for discussion.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So any questions or comments? Either obviously the amendment or the amended version of the resolution, because the resolution as a whole is what's on the table.
Well, why don't we just talk about the amendment and then.
Okay. Move back towards the resolution. Okay.
Yeah. I would be interested in staff's take and in particularly John and Randy's take based on the conversations you had. Is there still a valid point to this resolution with the softened language? Does it still accomplish what we need it to accomplish, given what hoteliers are looking for? And that's a sincere question right now. Anna?
No pressure. In the executive session that we had, you guys asked for the resolution that gave a ceiling to the amount of subsidy that you were willing to provide because the gap was so significant. So by amending and taking out the nominal cost bit, you are essentially not giving a ceiling. We are just back to the drawing boards. The land has been made available already. So I appreciate and understand the input that has gone into this. It's ultimately up to you guys to decide how you want to move forward. We know that there is no deal with Dora. There is no deal with Dora with the land donation. You know, that's not going to fix the problem. This resolution isn't going to fix the problem. The amendment isn't going to fix the problem.
And I will add that I agree. I think unless the RDC is willing to make a statement of how much commitment they might be willing to make if it was the right project and if it had the right terms, then it really isn't impacting on any future negotiations. This is a great opportunity to kind of fix some misperceptions that's out there. The RDC went into this and into these negotiations under the assumption that they were going to be compensated for the land in some manner. Though that assumption stayed strong until we got deep into the negotiations. Then around June of this year, it became apparent that there was a gap that the developer was looking for a subsidy to fill. So then the RDC took time to look at a variety of structures of deals, a variety of funding sources, most of which, if almost not all of which, are outside your control, these other funding sources. And finally came to the realization that even if the RDC did the most that it could do, and whether it's offering the land at a nominal amount would be the ceiling because there's nothing else the RDC can do. Senate Bill 1, Senate World Act 1 changed the world. Tariffs have changed the world. Things are different now than they were even a short year ago. And so it was determined in the November executive session that the RDC didn't make any decisions. It just said legal and it put together a resolution so we have something to consider, because we need, now that it's obvious that even if the land was part of the deal, as Anna said, with Dora, the Dora deal was not going to work. So it's like, okay, well, the deal's off the table, so our confidential negotiations are over with. And now we need to bring into the public realm what the RDC considers the possibility of using the land. Nothing was ever assumed that was going to happen, or behind, in executive sessions or anything else. It was determined by this body that, hey, we need to get this out into the public sphere, and we need to get input. So it was on the December 1st meeting, and input was received, and enough input that said, hey, we need to look at this some more. So there was a work session on December 10th to make sure that everyone was understanding where things were at. And so that, I hope that clears up this misconception that there was this plan to use this property alone. It was never the plan. But in all of the negotiations we had and looking at all other projects that have host hotels and seeing that nearly all of them have some sort of public assistance and some of them as much as 100%, we realized that the RDC couldn't make the deal work because the RDC doesn't have the ability to do so. Again, Senate Enrolled Act 1 has caused the RDC funds to be needed for projects that may have been funded in other ways prior to that. So now the RDC has to be very careful with if its funds and its revenues coming in. So, but this is an asset that is on the books. It is an asset that if this deal is going to be done, if any deal to be done with the host hotel is going to require the significant contribution from public sources. And the land, if that were a part of it, and again, you can structure the deal in many different ways. To try to protect the interests of the city, to try to control that the host hotel maintains quality and things like that. And so by doing this resolution, now we're turning it back to the CIB saying, look, we did it, we tried to do it the best we could. We don't have the funds that DORA seeks to do this. Even with the reduction in the scope of work, we don't have the funds to do it ourselves, and they're going to require something. But if you pass this resolution, you're saying, as it's without the amendment, you're saying, look, we may go to a nominal amount. We're not saying we will, but we may go to that amount if it's the right project, if it's the right economic development, which the duties of the RDC is for the economic development and the health and welfare of the inhabitants of the city. And so you need, that's your focus. And you were appointed to these positions because you're appointing a person or body felt that you have the expertise and are qualified to consider all these things and decide whether or not what you feel that, would be appropriate for you to do. Again, I feel that if you pass the amendment, it really doesn't change much about where we're already at. We've already been in negotiations. It's already been publicly acknowledged that the land is there. What this gives is the CIB now the opportunity to say, okay, now I know that this could be available. I'm not saying it is, but it could. Now we can use that in trying to figure out what the best method going forward will be. And as Mr. Weikart said, that that could be going back to DORA and seeing what they can do, or if they're no longer interested, maybe going out for another RFP. But it just became very evident that without a subsidy from the city or county or someone, the hotel will not be built. I'm sorry, but it is that cut and dry. I try not to make it
I'm
big,
just
but
going
it
to
is.
clarify that this proposed amended language is not to take that possibility off the table. It's to keep options open. And it feels that by continually inserting the nominal cost, that's, again, no matter what, that's still a possibility, but it feels like it's preemptively putting that in here, and that's my feeling in terms of why I've proposed this amended language.
I think I can translate and then maybe help get us along a little bit. I think to Anna's point about why staff feels that it doesn't advance the project by tempering the language is not really related to the deal with Dora that we've been discussing right now, but it's really, I think what staff was trying to achieve was to move the negotiations along in future. We really wanted to signal to the CIB what the status is, and then we can also collectively signal to the developers what the limits are. But if the body is not comfortable with that, then that's a different signal that's being sent, and we can understand that too. But I think understanding that part of the purpose might just be helpful in understanding where the differences lie.
I think it has felt to me like we're trying to accomplish two things that don't have to be at odds with each other. And I think, Deborah, your amendment helps bring them together. One is what are we signaling to the developer, and what are we signaling back to the CIB? And I agree with you that having the word nominal in there, I'm not a hotel developer. I don't do anything like that. But I would be looking for any possible point of leverage I could get. And if I see something like that, I think I can get those guys to give me the land. I think the way this is structured now, it's much more ambiguous. And to me, it doesn't give a little bit extra advantage to a developer to come in and demand that we give that land away. We've still got a huge problem, but I think it does accomplish saying, this is it, it's the land. Let's talk about whether there is a way to do this. And we've talked about other options, land leases, land swaps. They may or may not work, but it's not like we have completely exhausted all the possibilities, and that leaves that open. So I support the amendment as it's written.
Two things. I'd like to request procedurally that we take a vote on the amendment and vote the amendment up or down before we actually vote on the resolution. So just to be clear about that, because it does substantially change the resolution. So next, Margie, can you redefine nominal for us?
Yeah, so just if it's not defined, then you go to the dictionary, and the dictionary definition of nominal is very small or far below the real value or cost.
Far below the real value or cost.
I'd love to change the definition of nominal, but I don't know how we go about doing it.
If you want to say, if you don't want to go as low as nominal and you want to say a reduced value, you could use the word reduced. There are other adjectives or other words you could choose if you didn't want nominal in there. This body of RDC members didn't buy this land, but it was bought by your predecessors, and it is an underdeveloped, very nicely located bit of land. And the question is, and this came up at the council work session with you guys, what do you want to see there? It looks like a prime location for a hotel going next to a convention center. Is that what you want to see there? Do you want to see something else there? So I think that this resolution does send a signal about what you're thinking about this, and that's a really important signal we need to send now, because the convention center hotel's being built. Or the convention center's being built, so.
I kind of go one step further with this amendment. I'm not sure why we need a resolution at all.
I would agree.
Yeah.
We just kind of.
It doesn't change anything.
Doesn't change anything.
I believe it states, again, our interest in the economic development of the community. Of course, that's the purpose of the RDC. I believe it makes clear what our current engagement has been with this property. I think it just kind of level sets things to move forward. Again, we are still have all our options open with this amended language. It is not precluding the option that is currently in the resolution that the amended language seeks to broaden. So it's not changing that, it's just not giving the concession before we have an actual pro forma on the table to say, this is how we're gonna plug that gap. We need you to do this. So I want to see that as opposed to giving it away before we have that request. And I certainly understand there have been lots of things, lots of hard work by staff. We've been part of these sessions to talk about different options. But at this stage, this amended language is to make it clear that we are ready to invest, but we need to hear what the investment needed is. And also, I mean, obviously all the public discussion that's happened makes clear where that ceiling is, even if we don't put the nominal language in the resolution. So I would argue that it helps to straddle a very fine line with a lot of different vested interests. Obviously, the convention center is a very important product for the community, and so it's trying to balance the various interests while still moving forward.
I'd just like, Carrie?
I just want to express where I am with this. I agree that the resolution, if we're trying to signal a ceiling, the resolution as amended would not really do that. It just says we're open to talking. It also doesn't say that we have really anything to offer yet. And I do think in order to negotiate in good faith with whoever might be next, Dora's Gap is too big at this point. In order to negotiate in good faith with whoever's next, we have turned over every economic development incentive that we can think of. I don't think of providing the land at a nominal cost to be a gift. I think of it as an incentive that would have to be in the economic best interest of the city. That means that we need to know it's going to do more good for the city than what we're actually investing in it. And the only thing we have to offer right now is the value of that land. TIF, abatement, et cetera, none of that ends up making sense. So I'll just say, I think, I'm not sure why the amendment would move forward with the amended language. It doesn't signal much.
Matt, does the reduced language, I'm sitting here noodling about this reduced language, and that's pretty interesting to me. Does that provide enough of a signal? If we were to say nominal or reduced cost
That's
to the project.
The reason I think it does send a signal is because there is inherent flexibility in the statute. Dana and I have talked about this. The RDC has the ability, unlike other government entities, they have the ability to give land to a developer for economic purposes, or to do things at a reduced cost. So I think reduced matches the statute and nods to that flexibility. The point of the redevelopment commission is to take blighted or underdeveloped properties and get them back into a more productive state. And this property was purchased in 2019. We're not getting any taxes on it right now. And it's, you got a couple acres in downtown to be used for something. So I think that you ought to be thinking about using your tools and offering land at a reduced value in order to spur economic development. I mean, that's why you exist, to try to encourage economic development. So I think it does send a signal, but I'd love to know what the redevelopment commission members think.
Would you consider revising your amendment to say reduced instead of nominal?
I appreciate that proposal. To me, even reduced nominal, again, to me, the purpose of this amendment is to take that leverage out of this amendment, because I feel like that this amendment or this resolution opens up the opportunity for conversation. Any developer worth their salt is going to look at how to negotiate a deal, right? And that certainly could include a concession of the land. It's not like they're not going to ask because we didn't put it in the resolution, right? They're gonna be like, okay, how do we put this deal together? The RDC owns it, they're interested in economic development, let's see what they'll come to with it for the table. I understand the feeling that, oh, the resolution isn't making movement if we take out the concessionary language. I don't feel like it's the time to make that concession. We've already acknowledged that the deal that Dora's proposed has a huge gap that we don't know how it's going to get filled, and certainly conceding this land is not going to fill it, okay? And so if we do that now, there's still a big gap to fill. So there may be need for, we want to keep this moving forward. This convention center needs a hotel, and the RDC is always going to be there with this land to say, how can we support it? But we're not, I feel like this resolution is not the place to give that concessionary. Again, developer can ask for it. They fully know that this land is here and the RDC has a role to play in the community. I don't feel like we need to put that concessionary language in the resolution. And I guess, so anyway, so I appreciate the idea of trying to look at that. I understand others may support that. I do not feel like I would be willing to, if someone wants to propose an alternate amendment, I understand that, and I will be happy to participate in that part of the business. For my proposed amendment, to me, that concession, I prefer not to keep that in. That's the point of my amended language.
So.
And I'm sitting here thinking about your comments, and I guess I don't see it as concessionary language, given all the other tentative language that we've written in. So I think that the elephant in the room when it comes to developing that property is the price of that land, is the availability of land to actually build it on. And I'm back to the notion of, if we don't even mention that, if we don't even acknowledge that, what's the point of having a resolution? Are we signaling anything useful at all? And if not, why are we voting on it? But to me, it's not concessionary because there is so much other tentative language in here. So that's a thought I would just offer in response. So.
My turn. Okay, Margie, to your point. Bernard Robertson, since the last time we paid taxes when we bought it, we've lost $172,262 in tax revenue based on that. I want to take my feelings out of it because I wear my feelings on my sleeve. I won't get down to the math. Okay, and the math of it is we need a minimum of a 200-room hotel, and that location is the best location. But we also need to be able to hit an average room rate of $150 or less in order to bring in the 400 to 600 person conventions that we want to have on Monday through Thursday in order to help drive our downtown economics, which also is part of bringing people in order to help continue the food and beverage tax. The county and the city of Bloomington, through your cooperative efforts, have made the interlocal agreement happen. It's a bit of a miracle, but it occurred. And with that, we got CIB appointed, who has been negotiating in the best possible way in order to achieve those goals that we have. The hotel selected, the person that was, or group that was selected, came back with a proposal that is unavailable for us to consider, and that was changed significantly as our community as a whole when SE1 was passed. With that, we now, and I'm going to quote our mayor, have to do less with less. I think that was you. I hope so. But what I'm looking at here is signaling. We've had multiple discussions. We went through executive committees. We've tried to keep everything so we didn't just throw out what we could do. The math comes down, 200-foot room hotel, $150 under. Land is available, and this is the best place for the hotel. Now the question is, how are we going to get there? Now, the amendment, nominal, as I said earlier, and try not to be in a joking way, it'd be nice to change that term because it indicates in Webster's at a very low amount. And it's very difficult to say what we would do. Because when I look at what the hotels pay in taxes, based on, and I took the downtown hotels, I took the 7 hotels, including the 45-foot graduate. On average, total taxes a year is 1.69 to 777.8 million at the present moment, which comes down to approximately $1,637 per room in taxes, which gets us to a payback of our 6.85 billion of 21.36 years
And
average.
Is that just property tax?
That's just
You're
property.
not even
I'm not even
innkeeper's
counting.
tax.
No, I'm not counting in innkeeper's tax or anything else. And the reason I say that is because our group is only based upon our increment of the property tax. I didn't want to get into the weeds because, you know, I get in the weeds. I'm sorry about that, but I just do. So with that, how we get to it with the developer to just be straight up. We got 200 rooms. We got to hit our room rate. Are you able to do that? Because that property needs to be put back in service at the earliest possible point. And had SE1 not come forth, we would have already been moving forward. We can't change that. But what we can do is send the signals like, if anyone's looking from a developer standpoint, this has been discussed a lot. That's the place for the hotel. It's just a matter of how we're going to get there financially. And unfortunately, the city, everybody thinks that a governmental entity has more money than we do. But we have public safety, we have affordability, and we have economic development that needs to be put forth, just like the Prometheus lease. That's bringing people into our town that aren't here to bring our money in. So the convention center and the host hotel will bring that in. The matter is, how quick and can we afford it? Because the other priorities that we have as a community to ensure safety, economic success, and the vibrancy of our downtown, which is our heart, continues. And with that, you know, I don't know how we're going to get there unless we set a priority that says we're not going to do a police station, we're not going to work on affordable housing, and we're going to put a bunch of money to help close the gap for a current hotelier. I honestly think between the city's administration, between John Weikart and the CIB, that we can come up with someone to make this work. It's just a matter of how quickly, but sending the signal of we can't just give the land away, but let's talk about what it is, whether it be 6.8 million or whether it be less, but nominal because of you. And I greatly appreciate you putting that definition out. It indicates very low. And I don't know, I'll put Bloomington on my sleeve. We're not a very low community. We're a high bar community. So, thank you.
So, Randy, so are you supporting
I'm supporting
using the
amendment.
word, you're supporting the amendment as it stands?
As it stands.
Without changing to using the word reduced?
Man.
To you, it's okay.
To me,
Just wanted to be clear.
it's potato potato.
Reduced would be, well, that's a fair question. Is reduced different than nominal? I think it is.
Yeah, they're different, yeah, for sure, they're different words.
So
Yeah.
maybe that's the second, maybe
Yeah,
that's
right now
another
we gotta go
amendment
on.
that needs to be proposed.
Yeah, we got to go on that.
Okay, so we have a first and a second for the current proposed amendment. We have a possible other amendment, but that's separate. My question is public comment only till we get to the resolution, or is it, how does this work? Because we've been asked to have this current motion be just about the amendment, not about the resolution. So I'm asking for clarification in terms of point of order.
Yeah, if you wanna have public comment on the amendment, you can ask for public comment.
Okay, that's the
But
stage.
it has to
'cause-
focus
on the amendment,
Yeah.
okay, and that's fine. So again, just because we've had the motion, we've had the discussion, we're going to public comment before the vote. So we have public comment, and I understand that you've heard me read it. I have hard copies I gave to commissioners and provided by email to staff. But if you would like to look at the hard copies, it's available. Anyway, so opening for public comment either online or in person.
And I'll give my seat up for in person.
You can come down here, Jane.
John Fernandez, I just have a comment on the amendment. I've not been privy to all the discussions, but I'm just looking at this from an outsider's perspective and someone who's been involved with lots of economic development deals. It was my understanding the whole point of the original resolution was to send a signal that the city and the redevelopment commission was open to some pretty aggressive discussions regarding the land cost as part of the deal. If you pass this amendment, you're going to send a message. I mean, the whole point of the resolution, I think, was almost like a messaging bill to give the CIB and a little bit more room to maneuver in their conversations. I think, passing this amendment is just the wrong messaging bill. Because, I mean, the fact is that, even if they had the flexibility to provide the land at a fairly aggressive discount, you'd still have to go through, a whole economic development proposal that would come back to the Redevelopment Commission for your review. So you're not taking your ability to say no off the table, but the message that you're sending is, if I'm the developer, I'm saying, okay, so the land, is, an investment of the land by the Redevelopment Commission is essentially off the table. Because that's the message, because all the conversations that have led up to this proposed resolution is basically looking for a signal from the city that that's an option if it's a good enough deal. And if you take that off the table, you might as well not pass the underlying resolution, because you're just basically going to be at the status quo. So I don't know, there's other people that have been in the room, but I'm just looking at it from a messaging perspective. If I would perceive this as probably to be the wrong message. That's just my opinion.
John Weichart with the Capital Improvement Board. And thank you for the many opportunities you've given me to communicate with you about this. And I'm certainly not here to speak against the chairperson's amendment. But I do want to say, one of the things you did in your meeting of December 10th was you changed the word would to may. The resolution that you looked at originally said that you would offer the site at free or nominal cost, and you changed it to may. May seems to me to give you all the flexibility that you need in terms of negotiating with a hotelier. And I'm certainly not here to speak, I'm not here carrying Dora's water in any fashion. Your resolution talks about a host hotel, and certainly I know what that means. But if the goal is to signal the CIB, Dora, or any other potential hotelier, if we have to reopen the RFP, and I'm not sure what the resolution does as amended. You signal what you've already agreed to do, which is the design assistance, the schematic design. I think you've already done the site preparation work. So your resolution becomes historical, it becomes retrospective, it becomes this is what we've done so far, rather than perspective, like here's where we would see ourselves going. If the resolution passes as amended, I don't know how the ball is moved down the field. I just don't see how it's happening. We know that we obviously know there's a gap. We became involved in late October to see how large that gap was. We had not been involved in those negotiations. We saw that gap. We agreed to consider what we could do to help close that gap. We don't have financial incentives, so we agreed that we could make design changes to help close that gap. There's still a gap. The resolution, as not amended, says you may consider some other things to assist with the development of a host hotel. If it comes back to us, can we? And I tell you, we've certainly learned something through this process as well. What we have done in working with that gap in terms of changing and reducing what we would expect in the design of a host hotel, I've said before, is a bell that cannot be unrung. We've already had an initial meeting of our hotel evaluation group to consider what will our next RFP look like, because we have to be prepared for that if this doesn't work. Excuse me. And so what we've already agreed to do is already becoming part of what we're looking at in our next RFP. You know, how do we describe it in a future RFP? This is what we need to have. This is what we'd like to have. But this is what we need to have. And we've already made that reduction, and it was a $15 million reduction by Dora's numbers. And I said this the last time I spoke to you. If you pass the resolution without amendment, saying you may make this part of your offer, and the deal collapses, because at that point you signaled the CIB, you signaled Dora, the current selected hotel, how far you can go. We know how far we can go, and if Dora can't close the gap, then they need to go home and provide us the opportunity to issue a new RFP. And that new RFP signals to a new host hotel developer or multiple host hotel developers, if they're even out there, that this is what we can do in terms of reducing the scope, if you will, of design. This is what the city team, the RDC and the city team are willing to do to assist. There's your incentive package. That's it. That's all we have to offer. That's all you can offer. That's all we can offer. But with the amendment, if the amendment passes, frankly, it doesn't signal anything to the CIB. It doesn't give us any tool in our new toolbox to go forward with a new RFP to attract any new hotel developer. They still don't know what's being offered. So I appreciate the conversation, the discussion. This is complicated. I congratulate and compliment again the staff. This has been hard work. And thank you for the opportunity to say something to you again tonight.
Thank you.
So I have a memo that was written by four.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Daniel Bingham, member of the public. I have a memo that was, I believe, shared publicly that is from 4 city council members that was sent to the RDC Commission earlier today, but that people may not have time to read. And I think it directly impacts on the amendment, so I'd like to read it into the record in case anybody missed it. And it was sent by council members Flaherty, Piedmont-Smith, Rollo, and Rosenbarger. We appreciate your service on the Bloomington Redevelopment Commission and your consideration of our views expressed in this memorandum. We also appreciate you taking the time, along with the city staff, to meet with city council members during a work session last week. Respectfully, we urge you to amend the RDC's Resolution 125-36 to remove or substantively alter the final whereas clause, which specifies the College Square property, quote, may be made available at a nominal cost for a convention center host hotel, and Section 3, which similarly states the property, quote, may be made available in some form to the host hotel project at a nominal cost to the project. 1, in making this amendment, the RDC should make clear that its expectation is to receive value for the property similar to its purchase price, $6,895,000, in the form of payment or a land transfer from the Monroe County government. A long-term lease that reflects the full market value of the property could also be explored. Under no circumstance should the RDC sell, transfer, or lease the property for merely, quote, nominal value. 2, we believe as a matter of due diligence that a second RFP should be issued by the CIB to reconsider host hotel options given these cost constraints, since other hoteliers may find a host hotel project to be economically viable without public subsidy. 3, we believe the CIB and the RDC should explore in earnest other options for any additional public subsidy for convention center expansion, including host hotel, especially funding sources that are expressly for this purpose, unappropriated food and beverage tax revenues held by Monroe County, and Monroe County innkeepers tax revenues and or land previously purchased using these revenues. Rationale for why the RDC should take the steps outlined above. Bullet 1, the City Council, which is the city's fiscal body, established a formal policy position on this issue in a letter dated May 6, 2024, with 8 of 9 members clearly specifying any land owned by the RDC that may be considered for an expanded convention center site must be purchased by the CIB or other entity, for example, a hotelier, for, at minimum, the price the RDC paid to acquire the property. Second bullet, the property's total purchase price would typically require the City Council's formal approval and oversight, which we find meaningful and compelling, regardless of the fact the RDC purchased the property without Council's approval, since the purchase was structured as 2 transactions less than $5 million. Their bullet directly counteracting the City Council's established policy position on this issue will reflect poorly on the RDC and the mayor's administration while undermining public trust in government. Next bullet, to the best of our knowledge, the city has not meaningfully subsidized any other private hotel developments in Bloomington. If this property was not already held by the RDC, it is hard to imagine the mayor or RDC would propose using almost $7 million in tax increment financing or other city tax revenues to subsidize a convention center host hotel. There are other viable alternatives for any additional public subsidy, including Monroe County's unappropriated food and beverage tax proceeds and innkeeper tax revenues, or land purchased with those revenues. Unlike TIF revenues, these funding sources are mostly, or at least partially, borne by visitors, i.e. non-residents, and are related to tourism and a convention center. Mayor Thompson's pledge since the passage of Indiana State Enrolled Act SEA 1 has been we need to do less with less. A $7 million giveaway to a private hotel, regardless of its usefulness for a convention center, belies this approach. The mayor's prior position was that affordable housing is a more compelling use of these tax dollars, a position we agree with. There are multiple ways to leverage this property to advance affordable housing and enable downtown residency for those who otherwise could not afford it. These options include developing affordable housing on the site, exchanging the property for nearby land owned by the Monroe County government, and developing or even preserving existing affordable housing there, or selling the property at market rate and reinvesting the proceeds in affordable housing. Because the City Council did not have a regular session between the December 10th RDC work session and its December 15th vote on Resolution 125-36, the Council did not have time to formally reassert its policy position on this issue. 5 days is not an adequate amount of time for the City Council to be meaningfully involved. However, based on the Council's formal policy position, May 2024, Council member comments during the December 10th work session and conversations with our colleagues, we believe the majority of Council members broadly share these views. Just wanted to make sure that got entered into the conversation. I think the Council's position on this is really relevant. And as a member of the public, I share it. I do not think we should be offering additional public subsidy for the convention center, for a convention center hotel. There are no guarantees that the convention center is going to succeed. It is a business. Most businesses fail. We've already seen market forces that have drastically affected the convention business, like COVID, which has actually shut it down for several years. There's no guarantee that this is going to have the effect we want. And $7 million is an enormous subsidy that we need to be spending on other things. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hugh Farrell, and I will say that as a member of the public, my head's been spinning since the beginning of this month. I thought I'd understood the level of public subsidy for the convention center and related projects, and I think, as with many people in city and county government and the public, that's been changing really rapidly. I would speak in support of the amendment because I think it allows us to establish a new baseline from whence a new plan for basically regulating the level of city risk and public subsidy can be made. And then in particular, there's an opportunity here to address, I think, multiple of the goals, and I wanted to speak as well in support of the land swap proposal that was made last week. I was glad to be able to attend that meeting, and specifically say that in the context of the very messy process around the convention center, there's also the orphaned property, owned by the county at 222 West 2nd Street, where there are 29 affordable apartments that had potentially been held for the convention center, and now are really I think, suffering for being held by the county and without a concrete plan. I would say I trust the city and city agencies to be able to better manage those affordable housing units, and that the possibility of a land swap in order to secure those for the city would be a good way to do that, but we need time so that our head stops spinning and we can actually develop a concrete plan within which an RFP can be made and which affordable housing can be preserved and expanded. Thank you.
My name is Audrey Smith, and I just want to start by thanking everyone for all of the time and effort that they've put into this resolution. I was able to attend the meeting last week, and it was really extensive conversation, so I just want to thank everyone for that. I'm here to urge the Redevelopment Commission not to give away the College Square property without compensation. It's clear that unexpected costs have come up on this project, and we're at a point where we're going to need to piece together funding to make the hotel and the convention center viable. Those costs should not fall solely on the city nor on the county, but should be shared by both. Several properties were purchased as potential locations for the hotel project. Making an exchange for the property to the south that's currently owned by the county would relieve the county of their current burden of maintaining affordable housing without a structure designed to do that. More importantly, it would help divide the burden of these unexpected costs of this project between the county and the city. So I think that the current amendment is a step in the right direction, but I encourage you to explicitly include such a land transfer or other real compensation in the resolution that you're considering. Thank you.
Hi, my name is T. Randall. I am a resident at the Seminary Square Apartments that have been discussed. I'm here to argue against the inclusion of language which would give away the northern property or the College Square property for a nominal fee. The property owned by the county to the south of the current convention center was purchased with funds specifically for supporting the convention center project. The county has expressed its apprehension for being a landlord of the Seminary Square Apartments, and the city is interested in maintaining and providing affordable housing. The land swap proposed by the council members is the most direct path towards me and my neighbors having secure housing and truly affordable rents in a central location. The swap would also support the continued existence of several beloved local businesses downtown. As was expressed last week, if this downtown property is sold on the market, what else can we expect to go in its place but another student apartment high-rise? We all talk about the value of affordable housing. Here is a chance to protect affordable housing downtown.
My name is Barry Herbers. I think that transferring the College Square property for a nominal fee, or even implying that that is an option, misses out on the opportunity to protect genuinely affordable housing. The exchange proposed that we've been discussing last week by the City Council is the most direct way to achieve genuinely affordable housing. The county has expressed anxiety in the past that they aren't enthusiastic about being a landlord, and the residential and commercial space in the Seminary Square block is a wonderful opportunity to keep Bloomington affordable for everyone who lives here. Thank you.
Any other in-person or online public comment?
Yeah, I am online. I wasn't sure what the process was.
I can't really see who's from the public is here from the current view. Thank you. Could you just introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name's Eve. I'm a Bloomington resident. And I just wanted to start out by saying thanks to everybody for this conversation, for the intentionality again into this decision. I want to echo the memo submitted by the city council members to dive deeper into alternative options that won't require this long-term subsidizing of a hotel. It feels like a failing strategy, which it's demonstrated in other countries or other cities around the country who have who continue to operate their convention centers at a loss because of these sort of subsidies. I also want to speak in support of the proposal for the city and county to negotiate a land swap that allows the city to assume ownership of the Seminary Square lot. Similar to the other public comments, I think this is a great opportunity to continue prioritizing the development of and protection of existing affordable housing, especially downtown, which is increasingly unaffordable for Bloomington residents, especially the working class. And let's see. Yeah, I feel like potentially compromising affordable housing while in the same breath promoting the convention center as an economic development strategy feels misguided, and I would like to see creative strategies to continue prioritizing affordable housing, and this feels like a great opportunity to do so. So thank you so much, and sorry that I'm online. Bye.
Thank you. Any other online comments?
It looks like we have one person with their hand raised, Kevin Keogh.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm Kevin Keogh, and I guess what's troubling, it's not about politics that concerns me most. It's the process and really the accountability, and respect for the public. But getting key to it is, it seems something happened last week at your meeting with the city council, where seems to be a disconnect, in which, as a member of the public, it's got to be recognized and acknowledged. And what really is burning inside me when I'm hearing tonight, there seems to be some use of political capital. And there may be some people tonight spending their political capital based on who, gave them the ability to be on this board. And that's concerning, because I would hope we're acting in the best interest of the community. And as such, recognizing in these communications, especially with the public, it needs to be clear. It helps if you try to speak to us, sometimes if you're speaking to a 6-year-old, I think it's good to try to make it simple. What are we really trying to accomplish here? So, that's my key point, is this transparency, how we're communicating things with the public, and what are we really trying to accomplish? And this is a large amount of money. I don't have a timer, so I probably should just stop here, but I just wanted to make that point as a member of the public, my concern about, this again, spending of political capital tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have one more person, Eric. There isn't a last name.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, my name is Eric Ost, and I wasn't going to make a comment this evening, but I did want to support everything that's been said so far, in particular the comments by Ms. Myerson and Mr. Keogh. And I also wanted to make a note that the doors to City Hall are locked, which is a violation of the open door law. And if I could have somebody come and open the door for me, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Come in.
Mayor's on her way.
I don't know that this is the time. I mean, really, the public comment was really supposed to be related to the amendment only. But it seems that the comments have been about the resolution, period. And I did receive an email that is asking me to read it into the record tonight because they could not be here. I'm not sure what the rules are, if that's even.
I would think comments would have needed to been submitted for the meeting.
They did. So I'm not, do you want me to read it or?
I'll defer to Margie.
I'm sorry, there was a comment.
There was a person that was unable to attend tonight that wanted me to read something into the record, so I just.
I think it's fine, yeah.
While we're at public comment. First of all, I didn't support the resolution presented at the December 1 meeting as stated in the minutes of the meeting. I support building the hotel on College Square site, but don't support donating the site to a hotelier. Second, to make the hotel more profitable and require less subsidy, change the requirement that the hotel is prohibited from charging superior room rates when major events occur in Bloomington to preventing them from charging superior rates only when events occur at the convention center. As proposed, Resolution 25-136 currently states the Bloomington Redevelopment Commission hereby provides notice of its further commitment to the host hotel project by making known that the real estate at College Square, if necessary for the host hotel, may be made available in some form to the host hotel project at a nominal cost of the project if it furthers the economic development of the city of Bloomington. Nominal cost is vague and subjective term. If you were to poll the commission members, they would likely all have a different definition of nominal cost. In lieu of a nominal cost, it would be defined now or stated as a cap, such as an amount no more than. I still prefer a long-term lease, $1 per year for 40 years. The resolution goes on to say, nothing in this resolution shall be construed as approving the final development terms, yada, yada, yada. It appears the RDC still has to review and approve the transfer of any property. Each commissioner probably has an amount in mind that would be a deal killer. If they establish that number now, the public would know too. By not defining nominal cost now, it appears the commission is just kicking that can down the road. That is from Jerry Hayes.
Thank you for sharing that. Was there any other, just making sure we're good, nothing online and in person, okay. So we've had comments from commissioners, we've had public comment, any final questions or comments from commissioners before we take a roll call vote? On the amendment, we're not doing the resolution yet as requested, we're voting on the amended language, and then depending on that, you know, in terms of how the full vote on the resolution will go.
I would like to make one thing clear. I think everybody agrees this is the site for a hotel. That's not a discussion of what we've all collectively seen and very transparent in regards to. It's not a political decision. It's more of how do we get here from a monetary standpoint. And with that, you know, in previous times, even with the hotel for the trades district, we discounted the land, $300,000. We gave them time to pay for it. In past history, which most people weren't involved, the Hilton Garden Inn has paid over $4.4 million since they were opened in 2006, and they didn't have any land cost at that time. So, just to make it very clear, I am trying to look at it through a mathematical standpoint where it's going to best benefit the community. I think we've sent a good signal of what the financial circumstances are. If we had the money, we'd already be done with Dora.
And I just want to clarify too, because there's been a lot of discussion about a land swap. There's nothing that would preclude further discussions like that. Plus, there's nothing to say that the county wouldn't do that. So, but that, you know, could be something that could be pursued even with this resolution passed. So I just want to make that known that doesn't take the land swap off the table at all.
I'll just make my final word for, I feel that the amended language helps to straddle various points of view, many of which we've heard this evening, in addition to supporting the direction of moving forward. I understand that some have some doubts about whether the resolution has merit with the amended language, but I would argue that the amendment helps to find a middle ground that helps us move forward. So I will encourage support for that.
Could you read the amendment?
Yes, I'll read it one more time. So I've got, okay, so the amendment focuses on two elements of the, on page 2, if you have the hard copy of the packet or a virtual copy of the packet, focusing on the last whereas. The last whereas, as amended, would say, whereas in addition to the incentives already mentioned above, the RDC has determined the real estate at College Square necessary for the host hotel may be made available in a form and on terms to be determined by the RDC and structured to protect the city's best interests and limit public risk. The other amended area is for clause 3 at the bottom of this page, and that is the Bloomington Redevelopment Commission hereby provides notice of its further commitment to the host hotel project by making known that the real estate at College Square, if necessary for the host hotel, may be made available in some form and on terms to be determined by the RDC and structured to protect the city of Bloomington's best interests and limit public risk. So those are the two amended areas. Again, if you have the packet available, you can compare that language. Are we ready for a roll call vote?
It would seem so.
Okay.
Lori McRabbie, I voted in favor of the amendment.
Sue Scambaluri, no.
Randy Cassidy, yes.
John West, no.
Deborah Meyerson, yes. Passes 3-2 for the amended language. Now we return to the resolution as a whole with the amendment that was just approved by 3 members of the commission. So again, even though we separated this out, are there further things we're now opening up discussion for resolution 25-136 with the amended language as just presented, and the amendment is now presented as part of this resolution. Are there further things that commissioners would like to discuss or comment on based on anything else that would be relevant before we take a vote? Okay.
Question I have is who's going to be moving forward on negotiation with that? Is that going to go back out to the CIB? Jane, you're going to be.
So the process going forward, regardless, I think, of the outcome tonight, there's no deal with the current developer. So staff will report at the CIB meeting this Wednesday that there's no deal. And then the CIB will decide what their next steps are. They can consider other sites with DORA, or they can decide to release a new RFP. Or they could go back to one of the 2 other developers who responded. But we have to pass the ball back to them on Wednesday for those next steps to take place.
For those next steps.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I mean, from my position on this, that side is the best thing for the host hotel. We just need to get to the money math of how it's going to work as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Anything further from commissioners before we open for public comment on the consideration of 25-136? Okay, open for public, seeing nothing in person or online, making sure, because you can see the online folks better than I can. Okay, so do we have a motion to adopt resolution 25-136 as amended?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll do another roll call vote for 25-136.
Lori McRabbie, aye.
Sue Scambaluri, yes.
Randy Cassidy, yes.
Deborah, oops, sorry.
John West, no.
Deborah Meyerson, yes. So the resolution passes 4-1.
So procedurally, it'll go back to the CIB and then come back.
After Wednesday, we'll report to them Wednesday.
I do want to compliment the staff and everybody for working diligently to try to make this work. And I would appeal to our state legislators that may be listening to please take into consideration what the bill has done to the communities as a whole in our state. And I'll leave that at that.
Can we pass the thanks back to you all for all the hours you've put into this and other projects and the public? This was a long meeting and the work session was a long meeting. So yeah, thank you.
Are you going to have one last set of comments from the commissioners, or are you done?
Yeah, we technically have other business before we adjourn, so just checking.
Okay.
Any other business before we have a motion to adjourn?
I have one thing to say.
No.
I want to thank the two people in the team that have helped our economic movement throughout our community in the last 2 years. I want to hats off to Kurt Signetti, Mendoza, and the Bayou football team, because we've got a Heisman Trophy winner. We've got plenty of enthusiasm nationally for Bloomington, Indiana.
Motion adjourned.
So economically,
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
not wrong.
Oh my word.